Unleash your creativity with the Micro Welder, episode 22. Today we will be using these tools and raw materials, and I will list them in the captions. Okay, first order of business is to measure out the amount of wire we need for our ring. So I know that I'm a size 7, but if you're not sure, you can use a piece of string, dental floss, or whatnot, and measure the thickest part like this and measure out. Now I know I am a size 7, but I prefer it to be a little bit looser. I'm going to do 7.5. I'm going to put below in the captions the ring chart, a link to it so that you know the amount of wire. Here I have 16 gauge wire, which is 1.2 millimeters thick. And I know that I want it to be 7.5 inches, 7.5 size, and it is 55.7, so 56 millimeters. I'm gonna pause right here. I made a mistake and cut the wire too short. I forgot to accommodate for the thicker wire because it's 16 gauge. Also, I ended up trimming and filing the ends a lot more than I anticipated. I'll show you how to avoid this mistake a little later in this video. Like this, and I'm going to mark it like that. And then I'm going to cut. I have here a heavy sprue cutter. Make sure you use that, and I say it every single time, make sure you use a sprue cutter as opposed to a fine cutter, which will ruin your cutter. Now, this is flush on one side, beveled on the other, and you want it to be beveled in the section that you are keeping. Just in case I haven't checked that side, I'm going to cut a little bit more generously. And then I'm going to flip the cutter to the other side and cut. Then I'm going to straighten out and make sure that, again, I have 56 millimeters. Okay, so now I've got the size of wire I need, and we are ready to form. Now I am ready. This is a metal ring mandrel, and what I'm going to do is hold on to it. It's around 7.5, and I keep turning like this. And I want this here. Basically, we want two sides to meet flush. And you can help it along. And I put it closer, higher, because I want it to bend. You see? Now it's kind of like this. And basically you want the two sides to meet. Now you see, it doesn't meet flush. So you're going to have to help it by using a pair of pliers to make them meet like this. And since even though I've got using the cutters, it's flush on one side, not so flush on the other, I'm going to have to file. Okay, I trimmed it a bit more, but even when I push, see there's a bit of a gap on one end. So what I'm going to do is, this is a diamond file, and it's inexpensive. Most of my toolkits come with this. Okay, so let's see. That's much better. Okay, so I'm going to take a closer look, and then we're going to weld this. By the way, what you want to do in this case is you want to not have to push to weld. You want it to be on its own pushing. So what you want to do is go like this, move it, and then over push, and now the tension of the two pushing together, and it's somewhat close. When you weld, you just make sure that the two sides, this is aligned this way. Okay, now we're ready to weld. I'm using the Zapp Plus, and I've set it at 15 watts. I've got this clip closer so that you can see better. Oops. And what we're going to do is we're going to tack weld on this side, and then we're going to continue welding along the other edges. So here we go. I'm not using argon gas, but already, you see, get a closer look. And I'm going to brush this so that you can see what has just happened. Okay. See, the seam, it is welded. The two sides are fused. The gap is still there on the other side. So we're going to continue doing it on each of the ends. Let's see, make sure that you can see it. You see? So we're gonna do this, and on the inside, what I like to do is just this way, at an angle, so that it gets the inside. And then this here. So in essence, I am doing 4, but you can do more depending on the thickness. So I'm just gonna stop here at 4, brush it, and then you can see and it's very secure. Okay. Don't worry that it doesn't look great, because what we're going to do next is put the little cup with the pearl on top, and you will not see it. By the way, here's a blooper. I forgot, this is rather thick, and I did not measure enough. I should have before measured out around the ring mandrel to make sure. So now it is at 6.5, and I'm going to make it bigger by jamming it this way. Oh well, it might be some other ring for the pinky or something, but just to give you an idea, maybe what I would have done would have been better was cut a little bit more, or wrap the wire around the ring mandrel and mark it, then trim. However, here we are. So just know that do it so that it is a couple of sizes bigger. Okay, so this is a bit of a hack. There are inexpensive cup and post earrings. This is called the cup and peg. And basically you put a bit of glue and you glue on your pearl stone or whatnot, your half drill bead like this. So I'm going to use that. If you don't want to use that, you could use more wire, ball it, and then weld it like this. But I want the cup because I want to have a little bit more glue, and I just think it looks better. In that case, you have other options such as the ones that are really wide and completely flat, or in this case, it is somewhat rounded like a little satellite dish. And I think I prefer this because my pearl is not completely flat. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim this so that I can weld it like this. And then I'm going to glue. So, first order of business is I'm going to trim this. I don't need it completely flat because what I'm going to do is put extra wire around it instead of using solder, and I'm going to weld. So it's an experiment. I've never done it this way before. We'll see how it goes. And I'm not going to trim this part until later because I could actually, this is useful. I can use this to clamp and hold things. Okay, I'm going to see it if you can see it this way. Basically, I'm going to put this on top here and then try to weld. And I might not get this perfectly done, but I'm going to try it at 8 watts. Oops. Okay, so I didn't do a great job here, and it is a bit crookedy. We will see. I'm going to do the other sides. Okay, so in my shaky hands, this part of the cup has melted, but need not worry. You're not going to be able to see it. And what I'm going to do is when I'm welding the other ends, I'm going to roll this back as well. Okay, now what I'm going to do is using, instead of solder, because there isn't a lot of silver here, I'm going to use this instead of solder. This is 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to wedge it where the crevice is, and then I'm going to weld all 3 things together. I'm going to just pause right here and show you what has happened. You see, that wire has melted into the crevice in a ball, fusing and adding support to this. And I'm going to continue doing the same thing all around. Oops, I forgot the ground. And then what we can do is trim the excess and continue on behind it. But maybe I won't trim it, and I'll just bend it this way. And then you can see like this. See if you can see that. Like this. Okay, so that broke off that piece. That's fine. The excess wire. But you see, let me just give you a closer look. That has added silver on this side. That would be when you are doing flame and flux. That would be the effect. You would get it in there. The solder would form a base around it. So there we go. You see, I've added more silver here. So we're just going to quickly do that all the way around. And we're going to then trim this off and clean it. You see, there's a lot of extra silver at the base. Don't worry that it doesn't look very pretty. We're going to clean that later. The other thing is, when there's soot buildup, it affects how powerful the weld is. So every so often you just have to clean off the excess. Okay, we're almost there. I like things secure, so I'm just going to build it thicker and then file it down. Okay, so you see there's quite a bit of silver that came from the wire. I've built it up, and I don't need this part anymore. I was using it just for holding, and that was very thin. And so I have this. I'm going to file it, but before I do that, I just want to show you what it will look like, and I can see how much filing I'm going to have to do. So there we go. And I'm going to file this part flatter so that it will sit closer. Okay, so my welding is done, and it is globby. I'm going to now use a file. I want to show you from this angle again that basically it's good. I just need this flattened out so that I can do it. Done like that. It's already flatter, and I'm going to clean the sides. decided I'm going to flatten it out a little bit more. So we've gotten it down to pretty close, and I quite like it. I think hindsight, I could have flattened it a little bit more, but I think this is good. We're going to apply glue now. Okay, so I've got the 2-part epoxy here. Provided that the 2 parts are not mixed together, it can keep for a long time. But once you have mixed it, you have only a very short period of time, a few minutes, before it starts to harden, gets hot, and then harden. So using a toothpick, I mix the 2, this in. Now the excess, we want to remove the excess. I'll use a cloth or something, because once it hardens, it turns into this hard, clear plastic, like a resin that's hardened, that you can't even put a pin through. So I'm going to leave it here, clean up, and we will model at some point once it's ready. And here is the finished ring. And this is what it looks like on my hand. And I made it a little bit too small for my middle finger, but I quite like this. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like and subscribe. It really does help my algorithm. And let me know in the comments what city you live in and where you're tuning in from.